Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. My next guest, somebody I respect big time in the community, somebody I consider a friend, somebody who's been excited to get on here. Know him by 3 words only, fire content only. Also know him by Real Deal Fantasy. Talk about my man LaQuan Jones. LQ, what is good, man?
What's good, bro? I like that. I like that little intro for me, man. That's dope. That's dope. You gotta take those words. Fire content only.
Hey, you know what? Maybe after this, we'll clip it out, give it to you. You can make it a little sound bite, whatever you want.
Set it up.
But the topic of conversation today, talking about your LA Rams, LQ, finished 10-6 in 2020, finishing in the second in the NFC West. Ended up winning in the playoffs against Seattle, 30-20 in the wild card round. I don't know. The other day, talking to Amar about Seattle, I said 12-5. I don't know where I got that score from. So my apologies to everybody.
That might be how many times we beat them and they beat us. That might have been it.
Maybe that's what it was. But the Rams are they're a bit of a different team heading into 2021. Matthew Stafford at quarterback, after making the decision to move on from Jared Goff. LQ, what are the expectations for the Rams as they head into 2021?
I really have like a realistic, expectations for them. I'm not going to say Super Bowl or bust. I want to say, probably another 10-6, 11-5 season. I really feel like, we still need work in some areas. I mean, we just lost Cam Akers, so that running game is a little bit limited, but I definitely think, Stafford comes in as an upgrade, from Jared Goff. So the playbook opens up a lot more that Sean McVay can play with.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get into the Cam Akers injury when we get to the running back position.
Can we not, though?
Yeah, I mean, it's
nah, I'm playing.
No, I'm totally with you, bro. Like, cause I was really hurt by it. But
sucks.
Let's talk about Matthew Stafford, man, because you talked about this offense and how it could really open up with Stafford at the helm. Enters in as the Rams' new quarterback. He was underappreciated by many, mainly because of the lack of success that he had, the lack of winning they had in Detroit over the last 10 years. But he's a guy over the last 10 seasons played 152 of a possible 160 games. So he's, despite the many injuries that he's dealt with, had another 4,000-yard season, 26 touchdowns to just 10 interceptions. Was the QB 18 in terms of fantasy points per game at 16.3 fantasy points per game. Expected to get a boost playing with the man that is Sean McVay, though. Going off the board around the QB 12, around the 7-8 turn, LQ. How do you approach Stafford in your drafts this year?
So you approach him by not reaching. I mean, that's basically what any player, but I really think, where his ADP at is really where you want him. I really have him finishing, between QB 10, QB 14. That's really where I got him locked in to where that's like a reasonable spot. So when you go into draft day, I mean, he's a solid, late round QB you can get as your QB1, go into the weeks, and then you stream the second quarterback. But I really feel like, he's going to be putting up enough numbers. There's going to be enough volume for those wide receivers to be able to put up big points, and that just makes Stafford better. I mean, I'm not going to scream top 10, but he could be in that ball area.
No, definitely. I mean, I have him at QB 14 exactly. So, I mean, I agree with you. 10 to 14 range totally makes sense. I think that you can, depending on the league that you're in and how casual your league mates might be, Matt Stafford could be a guy that potentially goes real late in your league, later than, where we're seeing him go at the 7-8 turn, potentially even round 13, 14, 15. And if you could, like we talk about late round quarterback a lot, and just fill out a team, and Matt Stafford is like your second to third or third to last pick, that's a really good setup there, depending on what you did in those earlier rounds.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're getting a gem that late. You're getting somebody that's going to be putting up, he's going to have his 30-point weeks. He's going to have multiple weeks where he's having 25 to 30 points. So you definitely want a guy like that. And you mentioned he only had 10 interceptions last year. I expected way more. Kenny G out, with him dealing with injury, not many more weapons out there for him to use. Play calling was very suspect over there in Detroit for the last couple of years. So it's like, what did you really want him to do? That O-line was good, but the running game was so bad. They were ranked at the bottom of the table of them, rushing yards per game, rushing attempts per game. They were all the way at the bottom of the table with a top 10 O-line. It just didn't make sense. So without having a run game, without having a wide receiver core, what did they really expect out of Matthew Stafford? So I'm really like I'm on a high, respect line with Matthew Stafford, being that he's able to play through injury, being that he's able to go out there and put everything on the line for a losing team, for an organization that doesn't appreciate him. So him with this new chapter, him with this fresh start with the Rams, that's only going to motivate him. He's happier now. The sun's shining over there in LA. He has weapons from top to bottom in every position. He had a great running back. He still has a decent running back. He has a wide receiver core that's probably the best wide receiver core he's ever had since Megatron. So I definitely think, you're giving him a top two, not two defense. What are we really talking about? Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. This is why, you're getting the gem in those later rounds when you target Matthew Stafford, because he never had this around him. He never had a run game. He never had a defense that's top 5. He never had a wide receiver core collectively this good. So, man, you got to jump on that Matthew Stafford in the later rounds, because you're going to miss out on something special.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there with Matthew Stafford. I mean, ideally, even if you're playing 2 quarterback leagues, he makes a ton of sense. If you can get him as your number 2 quarterback, or even your first quarterback, and then try to get
him matched up with a Joe Burrow in a super flex league. You get him with a Dak Prescott. Oh my God, what are we talking about? You're winning. You're winning.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and I think what's understated the play calling upgrade that he's getting. Like you mentioned, like he suffered with Matt Patricia, we realized, was suffocating Darrell Bevell, but he really didn't have Sean McVay is by far the best play caller he'll ever have. So
I'm about to say it. I wanted to say it, but yeah, basically.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's get into the running back position. And honestly, the unfortunate news, Cam Akers tearing the Achilles. That was definitely disheartening. Wish him nothing but the best in his recovery from that injury. But enter Darrell Henderson, seems to be the next man up. He was the second leading rusher by way of carries last year and yards, turning 138 carries into 624 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also added 16 receptions for 159 yards and another touchdown. Was the RB 43 in PPR points per game with 8.7. I don't know if the Rams will trust him necessarily as the workhorse. They seem to trust Akers at times to be a workhorse. Akers had 3 different games in the regular season where he saw more than 20 carries. Also had a 28 carry game in the playoff win over Seattle. Saw the Rock 49 times in those 2 playoff games for the Rams. Henderson, on the other hand, has 1 career 20 carry game in his career with the Rams. I mean, only been in the league, is entering his 3rd season, but I do like Henderson, but I think that he probably fits better in a committee. Not going to report on his ADP because that's going to change. But where are you willing to take Henderson in drafts, and how do you see this playing out in LA?
From a fantasy standpoint, I am hands off of any Rams running back going into this season for the simple fact, one, is too early to determine his ADP, and drafts are around the corner. It's the middle of July. You're going to have guys reaching on him. I'm not liking his ADP if it ends up in the 5th round or anything higher. Even a little bit later than that, it's like a little distasteful because we know they're probably going to add a veteran. And if they don't, then we already know they're probably just going to lean more onto the passing game. They're not really going to have the same game plan that they were going into the season with, of a balanced offense. Be able to run the ball with Hendo, with Akers. But now that it's Hendo, I don't know if he can handle that full workload. I definitely think, it plays a factor in Sean McVay's system. I think he's not exactly doubting the guys behind Henderson right now, like Xavier Jones or Jake Funk. I don't think he's doubting them. I just don't think he's going to pay too much attention. He's not going to make the offense the focal point of a run game. So I definitely think this is a big upgrade for, the pass catchers. I definitely think, they should bring in a veteran, maybe like Deion Lewis, maybe like Duke Jones that can catch the ball out of the backfield, take less, hits off of Darrell Henderson. So whatever they can do to take a little bit off of, Hendo's plate, I think it would definitely help to go back into somewhat of that game plan to have a balanced offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's tough because you have people that say, oh, he's bona fide at least RB2, right? He's got to be RB2 in that territory. And I think if you project him out for the whole season of touches, yeah, he'll finish as an RB2, but what's the likelihood that he fits, that the Rams view him in that workhorse type role where he is seeing 20 touches a game, or even 15 touches a game. Like, I don't know how often that happens. I think he's a guy that'll see, somewhere between 8 to 12 touches in every
Yeah.
game. And there's not much that you could really do with that unless you're getting a lot of reception work, which, maybe if they increase to a passing game, they increase the volume in the passing work. Maybe Henderson gets some work that way. Interesting question, because when I first projected it out, he fell somewhere in line with Chase Edmonds, who we talk about next in the next segment. But I'm going to ask you, if you're drafting, I mean, Chase Edmonds has an AEP of RB26, somewhere around that range. Henderson or a Chase Edmonds?
Mm. See, I think a lot of people are having their expectations for Chase a little too high, because them signing James Conner is kind of a sign of like we need help. So, I might have to go Hendo. Only, only because it's like slightly. It's not like a clear, landslide. I really think because of the better offense. I want to say they don't have to worry about a mobile quarterback like Kyler Murray over there. He might take some of those touches as well. He's definitely on pace to get 1,000 yards at rushing. So I think that plays a role into there where that takes a little bit off of Chase and Connor as a collective. So I'm going to lean on Hendo because he'll get most of the goal line work. He'll get most of the, passes out of the backfield if that's, playing for him.
I definitely like the analysis there because, Henderson's a guy like we talked about. He's similar to Chase Edmonds and how they're kind of profiled and how people might view them as they can't be workhorse backs. They're
Yeah.
undersized. They're even at similar sizes, 5'8", like 210 pounds. So I thought it was an interesting conversation, just an interesting point. But let's move on to the wide receiver position. And Jared Goff struggled at times last year. We saw the wide
Right.
receivers struggle a bit at times as a result of that. Robert Woods had 129 targets, which he turned into 936 reception or 936 yards
I'm about to say,
and six
damn,
90 receptions, but it was
90.
900.
Yeah, he's good for 90. I think
Yeah,
it's
good
back to
for
back
90.
seasons. He had 90.
Yeah, with 6 touchdowns. The receptions and touchdowns both matched career highs for him. The
Yep.
yards per game was his lowest as a Ram, though. Um, was the wide receiver 19 in PPR points per game at 15.3. Cooper Kupp, on the other hand, disappointed a little bit more, finishing as the wide receiver 30 in PPR points per game at just under 14 points. Had 124 targets, which he turned into 92 catches, 974 yards, and just 3 touchdowns. Not the production I think managers were looking for, especially in that touchdown department. Woods going off the board as the wide receiver 17, Kupp as the wide receiver 22. How much value is here?
Great, honestly, because they're steals. You're getting them in the fifth round. I mean, you got guys like we run it back to Chase Edmonds. We got guys that are going in the fifth, sixth round. I'd rather take the value there at wide receiver instead of taking Chase Edmonds. I really think the wide receiver value there is great. You got DJ Moore sitting there. You got guys like, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. I mean, Amari Cooper. All these guys are sitting in those rounds. I'd rather take my shots on them because there's wide receiver one value there. There's guys out there that are going to be able to have enough volume to be fantasy relevant every single week. So instead of, taking that shot on a Chase Edmonds down there or Darrell Henderson, I'm going to go wide receiver there. So the value there is to the moon now, being that Stafford is the quarterback. I know we all know about Jared Goff and his struggles in accuracy downfield, taking the deep shots, and then not really just having the heart or the leadership to be, the captain of that ship. So I really think, that's what really led for him to, exit out. He didn't meet Sean McVay's standards. I really think, Goff is going to do fine. He's going to do what he can do. I mean, finished QB 20 last year. I really feel like, he'll fit the standards of Detroit or whatever they got going on over there. So I really feel like, the wide receiver core, you're getting the gem. You're getting guys like Kupp, who's going to be a huge red zone, target. He's definitely going to be eating on the touchdowns. We see him finish wide receiver 5 with like 10 touchdowns, 10 to 12 touchdowns. I think it was something crazy like that. So he definitely was up there that year where he was tied with Kenny Galladay in touchdowns. So I really feel like, Robert Woods, he plays a role where he's versatile. He's getting the rushing attempts. I mean, if you look at the last 3 years, he's been getting tons of rushing attempts out of that jet sweep. So you're getting the yards on the ground with him. you're getting a guy who could take the deep shots. I mean, Robert Woods is fast, man. People forget how fast he is. He has that, breakaway speed. So I really feel like he could easily play that 9 route. He could easily play the fade. He could do whatever you need him to do. He's just an overall great wide receiver, man.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp did have that 10 touchdown season.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm totally in on these guys as well. I think they're complete values. They're kind of being priced at what they produced last year, and you're getting the
Yeah.
quarterback upgrade. So it only makes sense to buy in at them. Which one of these guys do you prefer though at their prices? I mean, like I said, according to 4for4.com's multi-site ADP, Woods is the wide receiver 17, Kupp's the wide
Yeah.
receiver 22. So they're basically in the same ballpark. But which one of these guys do you think has the better season?
So, not looking at my Scott Fishbowl draft, so I was sitting on the board with, Woods and Cup in my face. I honestly went Woods just because I feel like he's going to get more receptions, like in PPR format. I feel like the rushing ability is there for him. He's going to get those. He might get a couple rushing touchdowns, etc. I really feel like, he just does a little bit more than Cup. And we're depending on Cup really to be the guy that get the receptions and the touchdowns. So I really feel like, with the you're on the clock, you're looking at Woods and Cup. I think I'm going Woods. But if I miss out on Woods, I'm actually happy that I can wait, a little bit later to get Cup, which is also great.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, like you said, the receptions and the touchdowns. The receptions are going to be there for Cooper Kupp. It just matters, are the touchdowns going to be there as well? These guys, pretty much the last 2 years, even the last 3 years, Cooper Kupp only played 8 games in 2018, but they've pretty much put up similar stat lines. They get this almost the same amount of targets. They
Yeah.
get this. They get almost the same amount of yardage, but Cooper Kupp is getting the touchdowns, and that's where he really makes the difference there. But we talk about the wide receiver position. You talked about how this team might go to more of a pass centric offense. This
Yeah.
is something I thought about as I was prepping for the show, which was the Rams ran a lot of 12 personnel. We know that in prior years, though, they were a heavy 11 personnel team, meaning they had 3 wide receivers on the field. So we've seen production from the wide receiver 3 in the past, whether it was Brandon Cooks or
Sam
um,
Watkins.
Sammy Watkins or
Yeah.
even Josh Reynolds at times last year. Um, Deshaun Jackson, he signed with the Rams in the offseason. Obviously, Van Jefferson returning second round pick from
Yep.
last season. And then there's Tutu Atwell, who is a second round pick this year. LaQuan, did any of these guys interest you as a wide receiver 3 option?
Van Jefferson, 110%. I think he is the longevity of that position at the wide receiver 3. I think Deshaun Jackson will give us 3 good quarters week 1, and then he's on the IR by the end of the game. Tutu Atwell, he comes in, run the 9 route. He does a little couple of jet sweeps, but mostly going to be on kick return, punt return. I don't really see him filling that role to be the guy, even though the draft capital is there. Like, that's always going to be mentioned, but we don't have first round picks, so therefore we kind of just do what we want in the draft, and it's been working. So I'm not really going to take draft capital really into consideration. I'm going into consideration of what's said about these guys. So the first week of training camp, we hear that, Tutu Atwell basically, taking special team reps. That's what was a given. I mean, the guy's 154 pounds or something like that. I don't expect him to be out there stepping up on Van Jefferson, because if you look back to when they drafted Van Jefferson, I say this a lot, but they compared their excitement of landing them because they thought they weren't going to land him. They compared their excitement of landing him to Cooper Kupp. So when they got Cooper Kupp, they thought they had it out of the park, and we see how that's happening now to where Cooper Kupp is a star in that offense. They had plans for Van Jefferson. So them constantly bringing him up in press conferences, them constantly keep bringing him up saying they have plans for him. I think Van Jefferson has a bright future, a really, really bright future with the Rams. And I think the back end of the season where we saw him get more snap opportunity, start getting way more involved, that was just a sign like, hey, we need to get this guy the ball in his hands.
Yeah, definitely. He made an impact as the season went on. He was getting more snaps, like you mentioned, getting more involved in the offense, seeing more targets. Was also an impact. He made an impact in the second playoff game against the Green Bay Packers.
Yes.
7 targets, also caught a touchdown as well. So I agree with you. I this is why I bring fans of the show, because fans of teams onto the show to talk about their teams, because I didn't know about what that they had said that about Van Jefferson, that the
Yeah.
excitement level was similar to Cooper Kupp, because it totally makes sense, because Van Jefferson does remind me of Cooper Kupp a little bit, not in terms of like the physicality and stuff, because
But they're
Cooper
not
Kupp's real
fast,
physical.
but they're beating you off the line. They have great routes, and that's the thing they mentioned with both of them. They're not the fastest guys, but they
Hmm.
manage to get open every single time. Just the football IQ is what really matters as well too when they go into draft analysis. Does this guy understand the route tree? Does this guy understand separation? Does this guy think like a quarterback? And that's exactly what you want in an all-around wide receiver. So they got themselves a gem with Van Jefferson.
Absolutely, man. So, we're talking about the wide receiver three. We're expecting maybe there's some production here.
Yeah.
What does that mean about Tyler Higbee, man?
Ah.
He's the
As
returning.
you know, I'm a big Higby, hype train killer. I've been killing this hype train for the last 2 years. I mean, I really feel like people are living off the last 5 games where he was
Bro,
out there balling out.
I'm not even sharing my show sheet. It's like literally what I said.
But it's like the last 5 games, like people are in love with that. But it's like, man, let's break it down real quick. If you have time, I'm gonna break it down for you.
Oh, go ahead.
So the last 5 games, we're like, oh my God, tight end one going into the next season. This is gonna be great. Then you have to really look at it. Todd Gurley was broken. Brandon Cooks was hurt. Gerald Everett was hurt. Josh Reynolds was very undeveloped. He was not ready for that wide receiver role. So who the hell else is going to catch the ball? How else is that offense going to be like successful? So therefore, when you look at those 5 games, they did not translate to anything to the next season. And let's talk about before that 5 games. Why did it take 4 years for that to happen? Why did it take 4 years for that to happen to get 5 good games out of him? It's just not there, man. Like I rant on, I go on and on about this, but like mathematically, it's just not there. They're not a tight end friendly offense. You're seeing Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods get 120 plus targets a piece, 3 years in a row, and you're trying to sit here and tell me Tyler Higbee is going to be fantasy relevant. He's going to have the volume when the wide receiver three, Josh Reynolds and Van Jefferson combined it, ended up with 115 targets total. It doesn't happen because also the running backs get targets out of the backfield. It's just too many people.
Oh man, I'm
So
dying.
and rant.
I'm dying. So, how do you feel about his tight end 13 price tag?
Listen, man, I hate talking bad about my guys. Let me put that out there. I'm a diehard Rams fan. I love my players, love the coaches, I love the organization, I love everything about it. But when it comes to fantasy, man, money is on the line. Reputations are on the line. I'm not going to lie to you. He is not a guy you need to be drafting because he's going to give you 3 weeks of 4 points, and then he's going to pop off that one game where he had 3. He had 3 touchdowns last year in one game. Kudos to him. But 9 times out of 10, he was on your bench. So therefore, that's the headache you want to keep dealing with for the rest of the season. Don't do it. Just look elsewhere. Just don't do it, please. It's a headache, man. Stay away.
You heard it from the man himself, LQ himself. Stay away from Tyler Higbee. Don't do
Please.
it to yourself, bro. I totally agree with you, 110,000%, bro. Like, there's nothing, no fiber in my being that makes me want to believe in Tyler Higbee.
Oh,
It's not gonna happen for me, bro. So I'll let somebody else do it.
oh yeah.
I'd rather take Evan Ingram, who's going at like tight end 20 or
Thank you.
17 now. So give me
Yes.
that all day. Um, LQ, man, this was great, brother. But I gotta ask you one more question, bro, before I
What's
let you
up?
go. How's this division breaking down? Where are the Rams finishing in this division?
Oh, number one. Number one. I only say that because one, I want to say the 49ers are probably going to be on tails because they had our number for the last couple of years. I think the 49ers defense is the difference maker here. And the fact they're able to kick our ass with injured Jimmy G and they got Trey Lance, going into this year, I really feel like, they have our number. But we always pound on the Seahawks. The Cardinals, we always pound on. It's really just the 49ers defense, that I really worry about. But, with Robert Saleh in New York now, I think we might have a chance to actually just pound out that entire division and to be, the top dogs once again.
Yeah, I have the Rams finishing first in this division, just ahead of Seattle. I mean, it will be close, man, because number 3 in Seattle, I can never count that dude out for nothing, man. So,
But he gets cold. He gets cold. As soon as it get cold outside, he is locked up. The kitchen is closed, so I'm good. When that season come around, I'm good. I'm good. As soon as I
oh,
start seeing snow, we good.
All right, so that's the correlation. The first 8 games, and then the
Oh,
next
first
8.
8 games he's good, and then he's cooking, and then the kitchen's closed. The restaurant is out of business.
LQ, brother, why don't you let everybody know what you got cooking, man? Since we're talking about kitchens being open, I know fire content only is
Yes,
always
sir.
open. So what's up, bro? Why don't you let everybody know what you're cooking, what you got going on, man?
Hey man, I got a bunch going on, man. I mean, you guys can check me out on YouTube right now, Real Deal Fantasy. You can check me out on Instagram, Twitter, basically anywhere where there's social media. I'm still even on Facebook. I'm in the fantasy groups out there, communicating, answering questions, engaging on comments and stuff like that. I'm everywhere, man. But you could definitely check me out. My website, realdealfantasyhq.com. You can also hit up the Real Deal Fantasy store for the t-shirts, Wolfpack t-shirts, fire content only. Got everything out there for you guys.
Well, you heard it. Real Deal Fantasy. Make sure you go check him out. Look, man, he's not lying. Fire content only is not a myth. It is a real life thing. So don't be a sheep. Join the wolf pack.
There we go.
And my guy, LQ, brother, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Everybody, we appreciate you for listening, and we will catch y'all later. Peace.
Peace.